Right, welcome all. Very good afternoon. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for that response. All right, let's get started. So, thank you for joining me here today for this session on the top trends for technology service providers for 2023, right? I'm Ganesh Ramamoorthy. I'm Managing VP at Gartner, and I handle the emerging technology trends for Gartner, and I'm based in Mumbai there. Now, significant events have taken place in the past few years. Of course, the pandemic has definitely been the major one, right? And it very clearly exposed the underbelly of the global economy, very clearly, right? Global economies and supply chains are still recovering from that disruption. And then you had the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, supply chains got completely disrupted again, and those issues are escalating. Inflation is climbing, discretionary consumer spending is dropping down, and with that, the enterprise spending is also coming down. So to say, we are still not out of woods completely, right? In fact, we are actually looking at a global economic contraction in 2023, and these issues are leaving an indelible mark on organizations, on how they conduct their business. There is an increased reliance on technology across all aspects of business and operating models. New ways or opportunities for conducting and transacting businesses are emerging. Is this working? Yeah, that's working. Great. And then, of course, we also have, more importantly, the impact of the macro forces. Now, born out of these three mega trends are the top trends that I'm going to be talking to you all today, right? So, increased reliance on technology. When you look at that mega trend, there are four sub-trends that we are talking about: federated enterprise tech buying, democratization of technology, right? Co-innovation ecosystems and product-led growth. Then we have the digital marketplaces, the rise of digital marketplaces, rise of intelligent applications, and the increasing use of metaverse for marketing and customer experience-driven initiatives. And then last but not the least, sustainable business is accelerating, or at least the thinking around sustainable business and what needs to be done around sustainable businesses is accelerating. And techno-nationalism is actually climbing up the chart. It's at the top of the hype there. Everybody is talking about techno-nationalism, and how service providers need to be responding to techno-nationalism is an important thing here, right? Now, some of these trends are basically trends that began in 2022, but they kind of gained momentum through 2022, and they are becoming kind of really more important in 23. And then there are a couple of others which are really new ones, and we believe that those trends will be trending in 2023 there. And each of these trends that I'm going to be talking about today have a significant impact on your business operations. And there are 6 main areas where we look at these impact as you can see: products and services, the way you develop your products and way you deliver your services, the way you manage your customers and buyers, the way you interact with them, the way you manage your operations internally, your processes internally, the way you deal with the competition, deal with the changing competitive landscape, the way you collaborate with your partners and ecosystems, and then, of course, the way you handle your talent and the resources. The talent shortage is a real shortage, real issue that organizations are facing. We're looking at the impact of these trends on these major operations of the service providers, and there's a scoring chart that we've used to tell you about how much of these business operations are going to be really impacted, will be impacted by these trends across all of the kind of tech organizations. Now, of course, individual organizations, the way these trends will impact them will be kind of quite varied, but by and large, generally speaking, this is the kind of impact that we will be seeing is what I want to talk about, right? So let's get started with the first one, the increased reliance on technology. So federated enterprise tech buying. Now you can see in the chart here, 2/3 of those involved in tech buying decisions are not in IT. So to put it simply, federated tech buying process is one where the buying decisions are made, or at the very least, influenced significantly by representatives across the business. Right? The buying decisions are no longer made by the IT organization alone. There are tons of other business organizations, business units that are going to be taking part in the buying decision. And you can see 67%, 2/3 of these are the kind of profiles of people that are going to be taking part in these buying decisions. And this is becoming very, very significant in 2022 and in 2023 moving forward as well. This trend definitely started growing with the growth in the as a service model, as we all know, but it is now accelerating and is pretty much an approved process rather than what it used to be called as a shadow IT kind of a model that, that's where it kind of emerged. So this is both an opportunity and a challenge for you all. It's an opportunity, obviously you have a lot more folks to go and sell to, but then it's not going to be easy selling to these non-IT buyers because there are lots of challenges here. There are multiple stakeholders from across functions and lines of business, as you can see there, with different objectives, with different budgets, with different performance metrics, and of course, very different expectations from the solutions that you'll be trying to sell ultimately. So there is utter chaos in terms of what is going on here. And more importantly, the stakeholders who are taking part in the decision making are very, very inexperienced in the decision-making process. They have varying different levels of experience in the actual decision-making process, and this makes the process actually very immature. While the trend is catching up, when we go into the organizations and speak to them, we find that the process itself is not very mature when it comes to this federated tech buying activity there. Therefore, for you as a service provider, you're going to be running the risk of delayed decision making and much longer sales cycle overall. And of course, this will also escalate your cost of sales because you're going to be trying to meet the needs of these multiple stakeholders, and you're going to be trying to at least attempt to provide a kind of a better buying experience, and all of that is going to contribute to the increased cost of sales. So overall, what we are seeing is that even after you close the deal, let's assume that you close the deal with the organization, you will still end up with a bunch of those customers, those target customers, with a high purchase regret. And the reason for that is their expectations are very, very varied. One person is going to be satisfied, and you'll have 5 other people who are not very satisfied with the solution. You are going to have to deal with this high purchase regret moving forward as federated tech buying kind of moves inside. So what should you be doing for this? The big impact of federated tech buying is, of course, is going to be on your GTM very clearly, right? So you need to be thinking about how you move beyond your current approach of product market fit. You have a product, you're going to be targeting for a market. That's the kind of strategy that you take. You need to move away from that product market fit to a product customer fit dynamic. These are the 10 different kinds of customers in the organization. What does the customer want, and how does my product solve the problems for that customer? That kind of a dynamic is what you need to be moving into. And to do that, you should actually have some ideal customer profiles. If you haven't created ideal customer profiles, create those ideal customer profiles and leverage that ideal customer profile to improve your situational awareness of that customer's buying process and the buying approach. That helps you to kind of at least foresee and try and kind of create some standard playbook responses for those kind of challenges that would be coming in there. And more importantly, I would say, try and guide those less experienced buyers, because there's a whole bunch of these new buyers who are taking part in the decision-making process. Guide these less experienced buyers on effective decision-making practices and help build maturity there. Now, I'm going to go a little bit faster here because we've got a lot of ground to cover and got just 30 minutes, so bear with me on that. We'll try and take some Q&As at the end of the sessions, okay? So let's move on to the next one. The democratization of technology. This is closely related to federated enterprise tech buying, right? We're talking about democratization of technology because this is basically the shift in the digital leadership or the maturity and the responsibility, the capabilities outside of the IT organization. So we've got more of those non-IT buyers taking part in the decision-making process, and more of those non-IT users, business technologies, trying to develop their own solutions as well. What used to be called as a shadow IT, as I said, is now an established process for building capabilities within the organization, and this is definitely kind of growing there. Now, the reasons why it is growing is because the users have become more able now. They can create more solutions. They can take on more digital tasks that were previously accomplished by very well-trained technologies or IT forces. And this has basically been kind of aided by a lot of move to the cloud-based SaaS kind of solutions, which had lowered the cost of adoption as well as simplified customer onboarding and those kind of efforts as well there. So and this is also kind of empowered potential customers with experimenting on the new technologies that they want to do and try and build some of those customized solutions that they are looking at while minimizing cost and risk there. Now, the important thing to understand here is The question with the shadow IT was always there. What is the governance structure there? If the users start building all of these solutions, is it going to be crisscrossing with the organizational policies and frameworks and so on and so forth? That concern is kind of fading away because there are more standardized approaches that have been set by the IT organizations, and the authority has been granted by the business management and the IT as well, and therefore we are seeing this proliferation of democratization of technology as well there. So this is going to be, kind of an in thing. We're going to see more and more of this activity kind of moving forward, and therefore what should you be doing as a service provider? Is democratization of technology a threat for you or an opportunity for you? Now, this is going to impact all sorts of technology and service providers in the next 3 to 5 years, whether you are small or big, whether you are in one segment or the other segment. It is definitely going to impact all of them, but it is particularly going to have a very strong impact on any service provider which has a kind of a SaaS-based cloud services offering, specifically, say the enterprise software, CRMs and those kind of applications, and authoring platforms, and more of the analytic platforms that you may be thinking about. Those kind of applications will be impacted more by this democratization. And therefore, the idea here is, we talked about this in the federated tech buying as well, pivoting your go-to-market strategy from technology-based value proposition to more towards business outcome, customer-centric, customer-oriented value generation or value scenarios-based kind of GTM there. The other important thing that you'll also have to think about is rebuilding your retention models. How are you going to be thinking about retaining these customers? Because the service switch-off decisions by these non-IT buyers is going to be like in the snap of a finger. They will switch off the service at any time they want. If they're not going to be using it, they'll switch off the service, and you've lost a customer there. So you will have to start thinking about how you want to retain those customers. And the fundamental shift that we are thinking about here is more and more of those short-term tactical commitments with the non-IT buyers would probably be more conducive for this kind of an approach rather than long-term strategic kind of approaches that you would have had with the IT organization. Those are the things that you need to keep in mind from a democratization of technology perspective there. So I'm going to move on to the next one there. Co-innovation ecosystems. I particularly like this because we're seeing a lot of action in this area. This is a new, more dynamic paradigm of technology innovation, business, and partnership. This is what is emerging here. And instead of the predominantly R&D, the internal R&D and product innovation-based approach, what we are seeing is that the emphasis is now on shifting value creation in collaboration with the customer and many a times with also the competitors as well there. That's the trend that we are beginning to see. And we saw this trend actually emerge in 2022, but we expect this trend to gain further momentum in 2023. And this trend is not only applicable to our services and software, this is also going to be largely applicable for hardware-related service providers and telecom providers as well there. And multiple different roles within the organization will also get kind of impacted by this. Therefore, co-innovation ecosystems for many strategic service providers, is going to have a major impact there. Now, there are 4 main drivers, and I'm sorry about the folks at the back, you may not be able to see those text boxes, which is kind of slightly in the smaller font there, but I'll read them out for you. There are 4 main drivers why this co-innovation ecosystem is kind of accelerating fast. Number 1 is the talent shortage. We all know about it. End user organizations and you as organizations have a lot of talent shortage that is going on, especially in the emerging technology domains. Then you have the financial risks, especially in product development activities to do with emerging technologies. When you're talking about those ETTs and trying to build solutions such as metaverses or smart spaces and so on and so forth, the financial risk is too very high because the solution is costly, the solution is complex, and therefore the adaptation, all of this is a big question there. And then there is an increasing importance on business value focused outcomes rather than the product goals as well there. So that's another factor that is contributing. And the more important factor here is the rapid disruption that is being created by new market entrants, especially the startup companies in the emerging technology areas where they are directly addressing the business value outcome for the organizations. And that's what is driving the creation of this partner ecosystem. And we are seeing basically 3 emerging approaches in this co-innovation activity here. As you can see those boxes here, there is a harvest, direct, and invest. I'm going to give a little bit of elaboration on that here now. Now the harvest model, hold on a second. Yeah, there you go. The harvest model is basically where you as a provider, you realize the benefit of product innovation by partnering with various different folks. without any direct investment or providing any kind of direction. So you basically have a large set of partners, and you're letting the partners co-innovate on, kind of do all the innovation, and you're basically, through some kind of arrangements, you're basically benefiting out of that because you have a core offering, and then these innovations right on top of this these core offering there. That's the core. That's the area where there is a lot of focus that's happening in, especially from large service providers' perspective, where they have a lot of these partners, hundreds and thousands of those partners. They're coming together to create these solutions for their customers there. The second one is directed, where the provider is actually influencing the product development activity, where they're saying that this is the kind of product that we need to be looking at, and also guiding the partners from the customer's point of view in terms of what are the needs of the customer. So there is a little bit of influence in how the product will be developed, what product will be developed, and also a kind of a guidance in terms of what the customer requirements are. We're seeing quite a few examples that are emerging in these areas as well. And the final one, which is slightly the complicated one, which is the area where very many examples are not prevalent at this point in time, is the invested model, where there's a direct investment and a commitment from the service provider. They actually take a kind of an equity stake and say that this is what we need to be doing. So there is a kind of a joint partnership, and there are not too many partners here, maybe 2 or 3 folks come together, and there is an investment from the service provider on these areas. This co-innovation approach is actually very less common at this point in time, we are saying. But what this model ends up is that the partner who is co-innovating or creating gets acquired by the large service provider at the end of the day. So that's the kind of evolution that these models are seeing there. So that's a situation that we're seeing in co-innovation. So what are you going to be doing in this area? What should you be doing? So this whole co-innovation is going to be a very, very complex ecosystem compared to the traditional R&D that we that we're all used to. So a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. Number one is, there is absolutely no playbook on this. There are no success stories in terms of I've done this well and this is my best practice. There are no well-developed practices around how value co-creation as a process can be done. So that's the first thing that you need to be doing. So this is going to be more and more of trial and error and experimentation for all the service providers. Number two is, the more the diversity in your ecosystem, the greater the need will be for support, for innovation for your partners. If you manage to rally up a partner ecosystem, and if the partner ecosystem is very diverse, your involvement, your commitment to support the ecosystem is going to be very, very high there. And the ownership of the intellectual property that is going to be developed in this ecosystem is a big thing. There is a legal quagmire that you'll have to walk through. So that's an issue that you need to keep in mind before you step into any of these there. So the important thing that you need to keep in mind, therefore, is finding the right balance between these approaches. Now, if you are a service provider where you have already a lot of big partners that are working with you, then it becomes very easy for you to pick and choose on a harvest or a kind of a directed model. But if you are a smaller player and you need to be part of an ecosystem, then you're essentially looking at an invest model or a kind of a directed model, so you can bring in your products to the market and try to drive those kind of revenue growth there. So focus on co-innovation as a continual process, therefore evaluating the engagement with these service providers on an ongoing basis, and of course establishing upfront a shared framework on which this whole co-innovation activities will be initiated, and the standards for IP ownership and so on are going to be very critical as well there. So that's my third trend that I want to talk about. The fourth one is product-led growth. Okay, bunch of logos there. Do you see anything common in these logos? All of these are companies that are often noted as PLG leaders, product-led growth leaders. These are companies that have kind of, they claim, and we do think that they are leaders in the product-led growth model. Now, what exactly is product-led growth model? Product-led growth model is basically a go-to-market strategy. It basically comes from the B2C world. And it is a top trend for 2023 because its viability to drive revenue growth for software, and this is specifically true for SaaS companies, the viability to drive revenue growth is faster and at a lower cost relative to your traditional buyer-oriented, top-down kind of marketing and sales approach, because the costs are going to be much, much lower, and therefore this trend is kind of picking up. So what we are seeing here is that in a PLG approach, the users are basically experiencing the value of the product through some kind of a free product offer, or through some interactive demo, or some kind of automated demonstrations for a more complex product, and they are then kind of converted over a period of time into directly paid accounts or through by advocating on and influencing kind of a decision on how to buy the entire product and so on. So it starts off as a freemium, it starts off with a demonstration for a period of time, and then they are kind of automatically kind of converted there. That's the kind of model that we are talking about. Now let me, and therefore, the reason why it's trending, number one, of course, non-IT buyers are going to be influencing it. There is a lot more non-IT buyers at this point in time. If you end up kind of servicing these non-IT buyers to your traditional sales and marketing approach, your cost of sales is going to be very, very high. That's number one there. Many of these non-IT buyers are actually want a zero sales touch. They don't want to deal with a salesperson anymore. Give me a catalog, a bouquet of product and service that I can pick and choose from. I'll try it. If it fits me, I'll go and buy it. That's the approach that they want. And then, of course, there is a growth pressure for you. I mean, you want to drive business growth faster. That's an important consideration for you. And you have a lot more of these companies, especially in the SaaS world. There is like umpteen number of folks that are trying to gain attention in the same market. And more importantly, there is more and more increasing focus on data and analytics to drive the ROI on the marketing and the sales efforts there. So that's going to be pushing towards the PLG movement is what we're saying. So that's the reason why this is essentially trending at this point in time, right? So what should you be doing with regards to PLG? Number one, of course, the basic question, evaluate if PLG is actually a good fit for you. Do you have a product that actually fits in the PLG model? And PLG model, the products necessarily, I'll talk about this in the next trend as well. Low-touch products, low complexity when it comes to onboarding clients are the kind of products that fit the PLG model. If you don't have a product of that sort, don't go into PLG. If you can bring your products into this kind of a low-touch, low complexity for onboarding, then you can definitely consider kind of onboarding your clients on PLG there. The resourcing of PLG is also very important. Most people think that PLG doesn't need any sales force. It's true to some extent, to the initial extent where the buyer is kind of making a choice on what they want to do. But you need resources at the back end. The sales and marketing team needs to work with the clients to try and drive the engagement up, try and drive the usage with that customer, and that's what creates the conversion there. So you can't get rid of the sales and marketing completely there. So resourcing at the back end for sales and marketing for these PLG activities is very, very important. And therefore, you can apply PLG for new business, which is where it is very popular, driving new business growth using PLG approach. But you can also apply the same PLG concept for existing business as well, trying to kind of increase your footprint within an organization, within a customer, and so on. So that's what you want to think about from PLG perspective there. All right, so those are the four things that I want to talk about from the increasing reliance on technology perspective. The next thing that I want to talk about is new opportunities that are emerging because of technologies there. On that list, the first one that comes to me is the rise of digital marketplaces. Now, we all know what a digital marketplace is. It's basically a catalog of products, solutions, and service offerings for buyers to easily find so they can go and get what they want, implement, integrate, and run their business very quickly. So the reason why it's kind of basically trending, the two reasons on the left is buyer-driven. Number one, again, more non-IT buyers. That's the reason why I put the federated enterprise tech buying right at the top. That's a very, very kind of a foundational trend driver that's kind of contributing to a lot of other trends moving forward. And then more users want low friction buying. So this is kind of tying up with the PLG stuff as well there. So if you have products that are low touch, that doesn't require too much complexity from an onboarding perspective, you can do a PLG, put them into a digital marketplace, and that's going to be kind of trying to help you drive revenue growth there. So those are the kind of factors that are contributing to the trending thing about the rise of digital marketplaces here. And this is also evident because we've got a whole lot of the existing hyperscalers. Look at the number of marketplace listings by these cloud providers, and it's just growing day by day. This is data as of December. I'm sure that's kind of crossed like 20,000 now already for the big players, the AWS and the Azures there. So it becomes very, very important for the technology service providers. If you have a strategy for digital marketplace, you should definitely be thinking about it. And it is going to disrupt all the tech providers, large and small. Whether you're providing software, hardware, or services in the next 3 to 5 years, it is definitely going to be impacting all the major players there. But the impact and the requirement to react is going to be very, very different and varied. For some, it may occur very earlier. For some, it will be kind of later. But the impact is definitely going to be there. So you should consider marketplace channel only if you have, as I said, light touch solutions with limited implementation overhead, or low complexity that is basically kind of quick onboarding and so on and so forth. Especially therefore through kind of cloud. So the kind of solutions that can go on a digital marketplace are things like the SaaS offerings, your cybersecurity. There is an increased acceptance for identity and access management solutions to go on the digital marketplace. That's low touch. We've got more and more of the data analytics solutions, shrink wrap solutions that are going onto the digital marketplace as well there. Now, if you are in a marketplace already, then the critical thing is for you to drive the partner engagement. Right? You created a marketplace, and therefore you have various different partners contributing solutions to the marketplace. You need to drive the engagement from the partner side to put in more solutions and try and kind of create the engagement with the customers there, and increase also the awareness so that the customers can interact with the partners and the transaction frequencies can kind of move on. That's how the marketplace itself kind of becomes very successful moving forward. But if you don't have a marketplace, yes, of course, then you need to consider the ROIs of putting in money, investing in kind of setting up a marketplace or kind of joining a marketplace there. And of course, therefore, you're also going to have to kind of evaluate some of the marketplaces of other providers, the AWS and the Azures and the IBMs and the Googles of the world. And if it fits your bill, you may also be able to kind of launch your own marketplace for certain verticals, because this is a kind of a growing trend. We have verticalized solutions, we have domain-specific, technology-specific marketplaces are also kind of emerging in these areas. So the rise of digital marketplace is for sure, and it is going to kind of impact you in the coming 2 to 3 years time period, definitely. The next one on the new technology opportunities is the intelligent applications. Now, as we all know, intelligent applications has to have some kind of intelligence, but the idea here is that they are driving expected business outcome through use of one or more of the AI techniques. That's the most important thing there. Now, this whole trend basically started out with the traditional software, adding on with some basic, analytic capabilities with established data sets and so on and so forth. That's how it started. But what we are talking about in intelligent applications is AI native applications that are built for providing intelligence and decision-making capabilities. I'll talk about it in a while now. What we are essentially looking at here is these AI-based techniques are going to basically lead to the kind of improvement of in decision-making, better personalization, or efficient use of resources. Those are the kind of business outcomes that they are looking to kind of provide there. Now, these can apply for all domains, from the traditional, say, core business activities such as a CRM or HR or supply chain management, and across various different industries, banking, healthcare and automotive and manufacturing execution systems. In all of these areas, these intelligent applications will definitely be kind of impacting that. The more important thing here is the influence of generative AI on the development of intelligent applications, which is kind of starting to pick up. And therefore, the way you create your applications is also going to fundamentally change because of Gen AI moving forward. And that's going to bring in a lot more intelligence capabilities in these applications moving forward. So all these intelligent applications will have various different kinds of techniques being used, sometimes in combinations, things such as ML and NLP and computer visions and generative AI. All of these are going to be very, very critical there. So why is this trending? Basically, of course, it kind of lowers the cost of developing these applications, and of course, the business outcome focus is very important. But there are three critical ways that implementing these intelligent applications is making sense for a lot of these companies, and they are, number one, as you can see, is the intelligent decision making. And what is happening here is basically the ability to connect and link people involved in upstream and downstream decision-making capabilities, number one, or providing continuous insight to the organization on various different kinds of intelligent inputs, resulting in more structured and automated and augmented decision-making capabilities, timely decisions for the organization, or contextualizing the decision based on the data from internal and external sources on a real-time basis, so that it improves the situational awareness of the organization there. So that's an important area where a lot of these intelligent applications are currently getting built. The next big area where intelligent applications have an impact is the process augmentation and transformation. So essentially, we are talking about embedding AI capabilities like ML, NLP, and knowledge graphs, and explainable AI into applications to make processes more smarter, and also dynamically adapt to handle new business situations or even create new business opportunities and processes automatically for you there. So those are big areas where there is an impact. Adaptive experience, we already know these have been there in the form of chatbots and virtual assistants, basically making use of NLP, and therefore recognition capabilities to understand user emotions, situational context, user feedback. These are becoming kind of built into these intelligent applications. So these are the main areas where there is a lot of kind of development activity that's going on the intelligent application space. So what should you be doing about this then? The first question, of course, is will your customer benefit from ML enablement of your products and services? You've got a bouquet, you've got a portfolio of products and services. Is ML AI really going to help them? Is it going to add value for the purpose for which your product and service portfolio has been built? That's the first question that you need to be looking at. And then, of course, does your product and service fit this intelligent application category? Which one does it fit? Does it fit the intelligent decision making? Does it fit the process augmentation category? Does it fit the adaptive experience category? Trying to understand and evaluating the pros and cons on these areas, and then identifying the use cases across these three different areas so that you can kind of create your own marketing and positioning strategy around that. So those are things that you definitely want to kind of keep in mind. And of course, developing innovative and differentiated offerings, which is where I talk about the use cases that are coming up in these intelligent applications areas. So that's the rise of intelligent applications. And let's move on to the third and the last one on the new opportunities from technology, which is metaverse. I'm not going to talk about metaverse here because everybody knows what metaverse is. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't know what metaverse is? Right? Don't tell me. Everybody knows what metaverse is, right? But what is becoming more and more common now is the use of metaverse technologies for driving marketing and customer experience engagements, more and more. There are some of the areas that I mentioned here are basically some of the use cases that we currently see metaverse getting kind of adopted for. So things like virtual spaces, shared experiences, tokenized assets, spatial computing, gaming, and digital humans are areas where metaverse technologies are becoming more common, I would say. At least experimentations have started. And on the chart on the right is basically showing how these use cases will be evolving, and more of those applications will be kind of coming into these areas there. But what is becoming more common is leveraging these technologies for marketing and increasing exposure for your products and services, and making it more relevant for customers in terms of how you provide demos or how you provide kind of new experience for your customers and marketing techniques through virtual shows and trade shows. These are becoming areas where there is a lot of experimentation that is happening there. And as a provider who would be developing these solutions for your customers, again, alignment with your customer strategy in terms of what their marketing and CX strategy is going to be becomes very important to understand their journey on metaverse as well there. So talking about what you should be doing in terms of metaverse, all of this is still, there is a lot of hype around metaverse. There is no denying that. So you need to be kind of investing with caution in the technology. Metaverse is actually a combinatorial kind of an innovation which basically depends on multiple different technologies, starting off from 5G to display technologies. There are various different technologies that contribute to the success of this. Therefore, understanding how each of this is maturing, understanding the use cases and the kind of user experience and the customer experience or the customer acceptance that will be there for these applications is very important. So there's a lot of study that need to be done before you kind of actually start kind of moving in that direction. And of course, keeping a close watch on the evolving metaverse-specific privacy and regulatory frameworks will also be very important, because there is a huge implication of regulatory aspects on the metaverse. Privacy stuff as well. There will be new, I would say, quote-unquote, laws that will be kind of applying for service providers as well as users there. So you need to keep a watch out on that, right? So those are the three new opportunities that are coming from technology. I've got 2 more minutes to wrap up on those 2 slides. The last one, which is the impact of the macro forces, right? The impact of macro forces, I talked about sustainable business. That's the first one. Again, the sustainable business is essentially what we are trying to do here is basically incorporate the ESG factors, economic, social, governance factors, into the decision making here. Now, what I want to talk about here is that one box there on the orange there, products and services, because that's the main area where you as service providers will have a major impact from sustainability perspective there. Now, I'm sure the text there is not very visible for the folks at the back, but what I'm going to do is basically give you a list of things, questions to think about. From a service provider perspective, what you need to be thinking about from sustainable businesses, there are 8 areas that you want to think about. Number one, are you building applications that are carbon efficient? Are you building applications that are energy efficient? Are you consuming electricity that have the lowest carbon intensity? Are you building applications that are hardware efficient? And is the hardware that is being developed actually energy efficient? The data and the applications that you build, will they be moving greater distance? Will they be moving a lot of data? Or are you going to be reducing the amount of data to deliver the same value or even increased value? Those are the kind of questions that you need to be thinking about, because this whole sustainability thing and its impact and its adoption is very varied across the globe. US will have its regulations, Europe will have its regulations, APAC countries will have its own regulations, and the maturity of sustainability thinking is also going to be very, very varied. But you as organizations serving customers globally, therefore, you need to understand how the maturity is going to be in these different regions, and every region will have its own requirement from the point of view of compliance on how the software solution in your application is going to be built. You will be asked to disclose the carbon intensity of your applications very soon. How much of carbon did it consume when you built it? How much of carbon will it save when it is being used? Those are questions that you need to be thinking about as you start building your sustainability practice. And it's going to cut across all kinds of application domains, organization size, type, and all, and so on and so forth. So that's the main thing that you want to keep in mind. And therefore, recognize that it is a key new parameter from a product planning and development perspective, and therefore understand how it influences the buyer behavior as well. You're dealing with European organization, the sustainability talk conversation there is already high. And there are RFPs that are going to mention how the application has been built, and there is going to be more compliance requirements from that perspective. These will force you to think in a completely different way, so keep a watch out for those things there. And then set your own sustainability goals in terms of how you're going to be dealing internally for product development activities. These become very important for you there. I've run out of time, but I'm going to take a little bit more time to talk about the last slide, which is techno-nationalism. Slightly bit of a pet topic for me because it's a huge conversation that's going on everywhere. But to simply put, techno-nationalism is just nationalism in technology promotion, so to say, right? Our countries are getting more and more protectionist in their thinking when it comes to technology investments, technology developments. And it's very genuine, because if we say the new economy is going to be completely digitalized and technology being its underlying infrastructure and backbone, personal interests, country-level interests, and safeguarding those interests will be on top of all of these countries' mind there. And therefore, techno-nationalism is not a fading hype or anything. This is going to be more and more very relevant in all of the conversations that you'll be having with your customers there. So regulatory aspects will be impacting the digital sovereignty. Technical aspects, semiconductor industry is the biggest example where technical compliance measures have been put in on various different market players there. And then, of course, commercial aspect, putting in excise duties or import duties or increasing the import duties on various different technologies, putting in those artificial barriers for adoption of technologies from outside countries. All of those are definitely going to be happening. And we've seen this happen already on the data space, where a data center needs to be established. The Data Privacy Act, we've got a Data Privacy Act across all of these different countries. So these things have been shaping up already. The last straw on that was the thing that happened between the US and China, and this whole techno-nationalism thing kind of burst open there. And we've already seen the emergence of these 3 stacks. There is a Western stack that is already there. There is a Chinese stack that is evolving, and then there is a Eurasian stack that is also evolving there now. So therefore, for you as service providers, which stack are you going to be working with is going to be very, very important. Do you want to work with all of these stacks? Will you side with one stack? What are the implications for you as an organization to think about revenue growth on these areas are going to be very, very important. Therefore, the implication for you is that you got to get more agile in your planning, risk planning, in your supply chain planning, in your ecosystem planning. That's where the implication really is. And almost developing a ready response mechanism kind of activities. So you basically say code blue, and you start doing those 5 activities when you say you're going to be working in a country in Eurasia, in Europe. Those kind of ready response mechanisms you need to have in place when these new legislations or any kind of artificial barriers are erected for your business growth there. And in some cases, there are companies already I know of who have considered putting in national champions to kind of basically drive forward their agenda within the country about their products, about their business, and so on. But it's also kind of backfired for some of them. So be a little bit more, kind of, I would say, reviewing on those national champions' point of view. But these will be required for you to kind of advance your case in these different stacks there. All right. So those are the top tech trends that I wanted to talk to you folks about. That's a kind of a quick summary there. Federated enterprise tech buying, democratization of tech, co-innovation ecosystems, product-led growth, digital marketplaces, intelligent applications, metaverse for marketing and CX, sustainable business, and techno-nationalism. Thank you very much for joining. I don't know if we have time. Take a couple of questions. Okay, I can take a couple of questions is what I'm told. If there are questions for me, please. Sure.
You mentioned about the focus shifting more towards non-tech buyers. And there are also equally challenged from my experience that the experience of selling a service or a technology where the IT is not involved, the technology is not involved, is creating more nuances because the non-tech buyers are going to be more feature specific. So it's going to create nuances of solution and also increase the digital footprint and cyber risk and stuff like that. So shouldn't there be middle ground where the tech buyers are reaching out to customers? There should be a tech and a tech and a non-tech sort of a collaboration there.
The middle ground is necessary, but it's going to change from organization to organization. It's a very, very fluid situation. And it is actually a thinking that is directed by the IT and the business management. There are organizations that are saying that I want to be very, very forward. I want my business teams to think about what new digital solutions I can bring in to drive their business growth. And then the IT team basically kind of stags along and puts the governance process and the governance structure in place, which is the middle ground you're trying to say. And in those organizations, IT teams are actually very happy to take the back seat and influence the decision making, saying, you take a stack A, don't look at the stack B because stack B has these stuff. So they're taking the technology aspects of it and letting the business folks take the decision from the outcome perspective. So it's not just about features that the non-IT buyers are interested in. You're specifying features because those features deliver an outcome, deliver a value. So the focus is on the value for the business folks, whether they articulate it in as many words or not. As long as you're able to do that, yeah, the middle ground will not be there. It's going to be a kind of a moving target in many organizations, yes.
Thank you.
One more question here.
Okay.
So this is on intelligent application you said.
Yes.
Emergence of ChatGPT and its impact on enterprises.
Oh my God. I hope there is not a ChatGPT who's doing this presentation, right? Yeah, it's very, very disruptive, and therefore you have seen that techno-nationalistic sentiments arise even in corporates now. Many corporates are banning ChatGPT. Many organizations, many industries are banning ChatGPT and so on and so forth. But the fundamentals of the technologies are very, very clear. As long as I can train supervised, unsupervised, large data sets and focus them on specific set of use cases, specific set of challenges, I can create these ChatGPT kind of capabilities and intelligent applications. At this point in time, let's say ChatGPT is probably the kind of pinnacle at this point. But we will surpass even ChatGPTs in the coming future, yes.
So,
Yeah.
where does ER&D stand in this? You feel that also with so many, shop floors and, large corporates undergoing rapid change would also be a big outsourcing opportunity?
The thing that I want to kind of distinguish here is the word engineering has often been kind of relegated to the thinking that it comes from the R&D, it comes from the non-IT stuff, it comes from the non-business folks kind of thinking is what everybody has associated the word engineering to. That difference is blurring away. That boundary is completely collapsing. We're talking about engineering folks thinking about business outcomes and thinking about new products and development of new solutions based on many of those IT technologies, AI capabilities, IoT solutions, putting them on cloud, having them on mobile, being able to kind of communicate with the workers on the field. All of these are coming. What the engineering folks used to think in the past was basically build a solution. It's a standalone solution. It's been blocked in one particular corner of the factory floor or some sort of that. That's changed. That scenario is completely changed now. So therefore, ER&D is, let's say, it's a term that's probably going to kind of, I think it's the service providers who are basically latching on to the word, hanging on to that word, phrase for long. But otherwise, if you look at the end user organization, they're no longer talking about ER&D. This is digital R&D is what they call. Digital product development is what they are calling themselves as now.
So this whole thing about the budget of IT going out of the CTO's hands and almost into the CEO or the CFO's office is not a very big exaggeration also.
Oh no, definitely not. I mean, the R&D folks are thinking about how do I bring in the IT capabilities into my product design and in the product capabilities as well. So there's a lot of IT budget. Traditionally speaking, the word IT, that is going to go in there, but these words are becoming very, loosely used now. Call it engineering, call it R&D, call it design, call it IT. They're all coming together to solve one single purpose, which is a unique product design which will have these capabilities and serve my customer to deliver a business outcome. When you look at it that way, yes, the budgets get distributed. That's why we look at the non-IT buyers and the whole spectrum of those non-IT buyers then.
So it will be beneficial to India because people will need a very big pace to really get this done.
If you have the capabilities to think about engineering, R&D, and IT and bring in the combinatorial effect of all of these together, yes.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, we'll take this last question. Okay, great, wonderful, yes.
Hi, thanks, Ganesh. So what do you think are the key constraints or challenges for the tech service providers to respond and adapt to this kind of evolving landscape?
9 slides of it already there. That's the way you want to look at it. But the thing that I definitely want to kind of highlight here is more and more focus on the business technologists in your user organizations, because they are driving the business outcomes for them, and therefore they are going to be dictating what kind of products and solutions that they should be using internally. IT will not go away. CIOs are not going to go away. CIOs actually have a far more important role now, which is influencing the decision on technology. The budget may not be there, but the budget is just one part of the decision making, right? So the budget may go away, but the influence is still with the CIO and the CTOs in these organizations. But yes, you have to work more with the business technologies, but you can't sideline the CIOs. Don't do that, yeah. All right, great, wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Pleasure.
For more interesting content, like, comment, and subscribe to our NASScom YouTube channel.